Have you ever discovered some stereotype that you never knew existed but described you to a T? That's what happened to me when I discovered the microgeneration of Xennials. We're a small group of people that are either young Gen Xers or older Millennials, but with a slightly unique set of circumstances that keep us from fully relating to either group as a whole. Described as those born roughly between the years of 1977 and 1983, we had a completely analog childhood and a completely digital adulthood. This makes us akin to the Gen Xers while feeling pretty connected to the Millennials, and leaves us with a particular set of qualities like the ability to be fluid and changing like we had to be when making the leap from analog to digital. But what does that mean, analog and digital? Come take a walk with me down memory lane. My earliest memories were riding down the sidewalk in my pink battery-operated motorcycle with my cat on the front in the basket. This laid the foundation for my childhood, and I'm thinking it wasn't all that different from yours. Our early years were spent digging in the dirt and sand, picking dandelions, and peeling apart grass while laying on our backs under the white, puffy clouds. We ran the neighborhood, bouncing from one friend's house to another, often as a gang on bikes, grabbing Kool-Aid and snacks wherever we could. The only dreaded moment in our day was when the streetlights turned on, beckoning us home. Our weekend mornings were spent watching Alf, Punky Brewster, Home Improvement, and later MTV while filling up on some brightly and unnaturally colored cereals that we grabbed ourselves. At lunch, we dined on Lunchables, fruit snacks, and squeezes, which weren't full of organic juice, but instead were some blue and red sugary concoction, and we loved them. To finish it off, we always had a ho-ho, ding-dong, or Twinkie, as we stashed our handy snack in our backpack for after school or aftercare. Speaking of aftercare, shout out to my latchkey peeps. We were there hours before school started and picked up just before they closed. Fortunately, as soon as it was legal, we spent hours home alone waiting for our parents to return and cook us our frozen Salisbury steak dinner with a side of some sort of crunchy apple dessert or brownie, which unfortunately had collected some rogue peas. Ah, the good old days. Remember when Nintendo came out? We spent hours mastering Mario Brothers, Metroid, and Tetris. When we couldn't sleep, we flipped on Nick at Night and watched Leave It to Beaver, Lassie, Flipper, and Gilligan's Island, never realizing how recently they had been on primetime given that they were in black and white. Life was easy and free. We got a bit older and graduated to caboodles and choker necklaces for the girls, Drakkar and Cool Water cologne for the guys. We loved reading our Babysitter's Club books and talking on our Swatch phones. In our spare time, we tried to record our favorite songs on the radio by pushing play and record at the same time on our boombox and storing it permanently on these boldly colored cassettes. And oh man, if your crush at school gave you a mixtape, even better. School reports started at the card catalog and looked like 15 books piled on an oversized library desk, grabbing a few good facts from this book and a few good facts from that book, some of which were encyclopedias. There was no Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or email for that matter. High school was where we were first introduced to a computer, learned how to type, and heard that heavenly sound of dial-up internet. You've got mail. Things were a bit slower then. Our first cars were a thing of beauty. Most of them still had a cassette player, but there were the fortunate few that had a disc player. And of course, crank windows were still the norm. Around the middle of high school, some of us were introduced to our first cell phones. They were gray, clunky, and expensive to talk on. I stashed mine in my glove box, my mom threatening to kill me if I used it for anything other than an emergency. Pagers were still the way we stayed in touch with our friends. If it was an emergency, you were sure to add 911 to the end of that page. When we entered college and the workforce, we were forced to grow in the area of technology. We used email and cell phones daily out of necessity. Fax machines were a thing of the past and we were never out of touch. It was a changing world, and we got really good at adapting quickly. Making the switch from analog to digital seemed effortless for our young brains. and it has served us well into our 30s and 40s. We don't shy away from new technology, like apps and equipment, the way that some of the older Gen Xers and baby boomers do. And at the very least, it comes more naturally to us to use it. The only ones putting us to shame in this department are the Gen Zers that we gave birth to. Mastering an iPad at 3 and 4 years old is impressive, admit it. It's my opinion that we are the most fortunate generation, even if we are only a microgeneration. Living a slow childhood with the perks of a tapped-in adulthood was almost ideal. While I still long for those slow summer days with the puffy white clouds during our elementary school time, I strive to relive them with my own children. The events of 2020 and 2021 have had us tucked away and spending too much time connected to our devices. But whenever asked, my children will tell you the thing they're most looking forward to is spending time outside with friends. And you know what? So am I. So am I, and you are too, probably so easy to see in the Xennial stereotype. It's the time that shaped us.